This panel is called the War Reporting Panel, but I think we're more going to talk about war storytelling because we have a very interesting group of people here. We have Laurence, who's a photo editor for Le Monde. We have documentary filmmakers Vardan, Hovhannisyan, and Angela Frangyan. And we have Vaghinak Ghazaryan, who's a photojournalist, and with Vaghinak, it's very interesting. With one photo, you told the whole story, and with a million photos, we didn't tell enough stories this year, and we'll talk about it. And also Augustinas, Šulija, who's from Lithuania, works for the Lithuanian National Broadcasting Agency, and is a seasoned war reporter. Thank you, everyone, for being here. So. It's interesting. We did this panel because we thought we needed to talk about the storytelling, the reporting about war. But earlier today, I was watching the narrative journalism panel, and it ended up again being about war. And now this war reporting panel is maybe a little bit going to be about narrative storytelling, because, and also, I see people here sitting in the audience who could have been on this panel, so guys, join in. So media is changing, and the way we report is changing. And we had this experience very recently, unfortunately, in Armenia, when one day we were covering a press conference, the next day we ended up covering a war, and we whoever I speak with, all the people that are here that were there with me, all the people that are here that were there with me, we are not happy with ourselves. We feel like we didn't relate the story, we didn't tell the story, and we feel like we did not know how to report on a war, about a war that you're a part of. That construct that a journalist should not take sides and should tell things the way it kind of disappears when you're also the target and you've been attacked. So we were, I'm going to generalize, but I'm going to say we were somewhat very unprepared for it. I'm going to start with you, Augustinas, because you were in Artsakh reporting, and maybe just this general question just to get the conversation started. How was your reporting different? How is your reporting different when it's someone else's war, and this objectivity factor, how does it come in?
Yeah, it's a tough question. Indeed, I remember before going to Artsakh, I did know very little about the region itself, about what to expect, and more generally, how to engage with people, what to expect. The problem for us was, for my editors, was to explain this to the audience, to Lithuanian audience, which have no relationship whatsoever with the region. So the task was quite hard to raise the empathy, to raise the why it's important for the people who don't know much about the region. But of course, I think, and in general, there was a lot of questions how we're gonna cover this conflict, from which side we should go, how we should go, and so on. And I think from the first moments, from the first hours of the war, it became clear that Armenia is ready, is open for journalists to come. And they were very much engaged from the first moment that we told them that we want to come. And I think from this, for me, it was something new. You know, they want you to come, and they want you to go and they give access to go. Usually it doesn't happen in the conflict zones. Usually it's other way around. And in this case, there was this huge wish and will from Armenia to go and tell the story. So kind of untied hands. So it was, for me, it was something new and something that was very helpful in the situation and allowed very quickly to get engaged and understand and feel the atmosphere, to understand what's going on and engage with people and officials as well.
It's very interesting because from our side, we were complaining of a lack of access. And it's a different kind of story that we're telling, because you're telling a general story that's tailored for a viewer that doesn't know much about Armenia. So all the nuances and the details, you were okay with just sheer facts and witnessing. While our perspective was we were gonna tell the intricate details. We know everything else. We're not just introducing ourselves to the region or to the conflict, and we were going to be at least in my mind, we were going to be the, recorders of history in all its detail, and we didn't have the access. So this is very interesting. We didn't have the access we needed to actually do what we thought we were going to do. And what we thought we were going to do, let's talk about that. We were talking about that with Angela earlier. We thought we were going to make a difference. And we maybe neglected looking at the whole story from a wider perspective, from a long-term perspective, from taking time to understand and then report perspective. And it's also kind of how things are set up. That's why it's very important that you guys are here, because I, as a journalist, and some friends as journalists, we want to report on the spot because that's what's expected from us. However, maybe that's not the most correct way of storytelling if you're looking at the situation from a storytelling perspective. Vardan, you've had this experience, unfortunately, over and over again, while some of us are just relatively new to it.
Yeah, when you say over, I feel like I participate in World War I, World War II, and all Karabakh wars. I think it's a question of access. It's our mistake that we not prepare for the war, because it's a military preparing for the war for years. They plan everything, but journalists and filmmakers were thinking, well, when war started, we will go to filming and everything will be prepared. We are here. No, you must prepare by years before and predict the things which you don't want for will be happened. I had the bad reputation in Armenian media that they say, like you always saying that war will be happened, let's prepare.
You're jinxing it.
Yes, I don't know, this bird which is saying that. So I think it's, we have the all access in the wartime. We have 99% of access what we want at Bars Media, because we prepare for the war. This is people sometimes have the post-war syndrome. I can say I had the pre-war syndrome, So I was wake up in night, imagine that war starts and what I will do, what our studio will do, who do what it will do. So that's why we have access. And I think for future's war, we must be better prepared, not react immediately, but react 2 years before.
Angela, and Vaghinak, about the post-war syndrome, because maybe we can coin this term, post-war syndrome, because a lot of us have a lot of material that we no longer know what to do with. And Laurence, this comes to you also. We have these archives, thousands of photos that were taken very randomly, that were taken in a way that we just happened to have access. We were there, we were around, and it didn't come with a preconceived notion of what this is going to end up as. Angela has a different experience, because as a filmmaker, you were there and you were documenting most of the time, and your setup was, I will tell the story eventually, let's just get what's happening here, document what's happening here. We were maybe chasing situations. If Stepanakert was bombed, we were running and trying to find out exactly where that was. So we were not constructing a story. But you found a way now to kind of deal with this post-war syndrome, and maybe Vaghinak and I or some others in the audience still haven't.
I can't say that I already solved that problem. But the reality is that my situation was totally different, because though it's my ex-boss. And so I kind of a bit prepared, but a bit. But I just was there and it happened. It wasn't my choice to go there, but it was just being in the war while you are a filmmaker, what you can do. And as you already told, not having any access. First days I was giving some reportages to the outside media because of COVID. They weren't able to come here, and I was, as an Armenian side, was feeling responsible to give them material from there. And at some point I understood that what they want from me, I don't want to give that way. It's not the story that I feel in the place. That's why I really stopped doing it. And I was thinking that because it was changing so fast, it wasn't the war that I saw in archives of Vardan also, where he can be on the same spot in a very long time, because today is this place is not ours and we can't enter. Next day is this place is not ours and we can't enter. And it was very fast war with all of these drones, etc. Then I decided that I can't even have chronological or characters or something. And what matters that where I am, I have to document it. And I remember that to get, it wasn't only about access, but at some point people also didn't allow us to shoot because they were thinking that when we are putting it on the websites, etc., then they know our places and they can hit us. And they were very, started to be very close from us. And whenever they were seeing our cameras, they were afraid from us. And I invent for myself and for them one interesting word, which is, I am doing it for archive. And it became for me also a kind of a guide that I'm doing this for archive. So nothing is matters if I can't follow, if I can't be there, because everything that is happening, even if I am sitting under the shelter with women who are waiting their boys, it's already there. This is also the war. So that's how I did. But when I came back, it was horrible because you can't go back and see all these pictures, first of all. You feel luck because you think it was more and you shoot nothing. You feel judgmental of yourself, that maybe you could do more and you didn't. And because you were not prepared technically, I didn't have even the optic, and then friends somehow sent it to me. I was deleting on my SD card every time I was shooting. Then I was thinking, oh, this is more important than deleting, because I didn't have even space. So when I am looking now, I feel so judgmental for myself, etc. But as a person, I used to go back to the region because I have been hit and I have been under attack, and one person saved my life, and I was going to the place to meet him always, and I felt so comfortable with him. I decided maybe this story has to be about coming back, and that's how maybe I can get out from this guilt of survival. That's how maybe I will save also this archival material, which anyhow will risk a lot to be there and shoot, and it will not lost.
Laurence, Angela's talking about the archives, and she's kind of find a way to reference it, that it's to kind of reorganize it and tell a story. And it's a story that references her experience during the war, unfortunately, like very traumatic experience, because you were in the shelling in Martuni, where a French journalist was wounded, and I think his rehabilitation process took years. How do you deal with the material and the existence of a journalist in a conflict zone when you're far away and you're at the same time expected to support them, inform them, and to some extent also keep them safe? And we'll talk about safety issues, which was something else. And also eventually have a coherent story without this thing is that I didn't shoot enough, I didn't do enough. Because I think that's true for any journalist in any given situation, but especially if it's your conflict, and you're all of a sudden decided, maybe not rightfully so, but decided that you're going to be telling the whole story for the future of the recording history. You're not doing one reportage and getting out. You're recording the whole story.
So yes, the role that I have is exactly what you pointed, but I work for a daily newspaper, and I think the frustration you had comes from that, because there are these two time with reporting about conflict.
Right.
There is your way, where you're not reporting on an everyday basis, but collecting and make sense of it afterwards.
Or
and
preparing for years.
Or preparing it for years. And then there was your time that was more of an urgency time, where you had to report like every day, bring in a new story. And I'm like working for a daily newspaper, I have this perspective. So it's a story per day. So a different angle every day that still needs to have the step back to give the bigger picture and the wider understanding, contextualization. And so dealing with this archive, I think that we were talking about that earlier in the workshop. There is like what you publish at the time of the conflict itself, while it's unraveling, because it's bringing in some specific informations, because it's the first time that this specific event happened, so it's important to show it at this time. And then we encourage everyone to actually revisit the archive a few months and a few years later, because then the story keeps unraveling. It's not as if like war is ending with the end of war. There is the aftermath, there's all these things. And it's also a very important time, in my opinion, at least for visual material, to re-explore that, to tell the story in a broader perspective with the time that has passed in the meantime.
Well, something I'm thinking about how maybe storytelling and news reporting should change, because it's a lot of our experience, my experience as well, and Augustinas, tell us if you guys also felt the same. Something happens, you're there, and so are 55 other people. So 55 reporters with all your potential, or whatever you can do, is going to take the same photo and take the same image. And at this point, you're thinking, wouldn't I have been better doing more if I was somewhere else? But this drive to be at the center of what's happening at the moment is maybe, if you guys feel like that also, it is a waste of time, because maybe 20 of us now have maybe very similar images from a very similar, exact same place, posted more or less at the same time. Is there a way to kind of not be in this loop forever and change storytelling, even for news? Because I know everyone needs that photo. However, it's kind of a waste of resources in a way. Maybe we can talk about this, how we're all chasing the same thing at the same time.
Maybe I can tell from recent experience from Ukraine as well. Before going, we decided that we're not going to chase breaking news, and we're not going to run after the one airstrike after another. For sure, Reuters is going to be faster than you. So why would you go? So it was a conscious decision, let's not do it. Let's try to find maybe other angles, maybe slower stories, and so on. But also at the same time, and we consciously, for example, it was the weeks where the Bucha massacre place was discovered, and the world attention was there. And of course, we felt pressured by the producers and editors. Well, are you going to do something about it? We kind of made a deal that they're not going to interfere. Okay, you're going to do your work, but you can feel it anyways, right? And then you're kind of feeling, I'm missing out something, or am I not? And at the end, we decided just to go for ourselves without any intention to make a story about it. And I think it kind of released some pressure from us. And then when we arrived and we just, without cameras, without anything, start wandering around the city, looking, watching other reporters working. And then somehow, at the end of the day, we find out really nice angles and really nice stories that was really, I think, very interesting and maybe something that you could qualify as maybe slower news, not this breaking stuff, but that was also about very much relevant thing. So that was just an interesting
one way to go around that. Vaghinak Jan, I saw you at the very beginning of the war. You were there, and you were saying, "I'm just here. I don't know if I should keep my camera on myself or pick up a gun." So you're like, should I be fighting or should I be documenting? And you were ready for both at all times. And the difference, what you had is that you were not working for an agency, you didn't have editors pressuring you to get this story, that story. You were not telling the longer filmmaking perspective. You were there as a photojournalist, as a photographer, and in that middle of making that decision, it's camera or guns, and I think Vardan also relates to making that decision. And what we saw also in Artsakh during the war was a lot of photographers, a lot of the journalists already were prepared. They had camera on one side and their pen on the other. So, what was your process like, and what were you thinking at the time?
Ես հայտնվել եմ գործընթացում դեռ 2016 թվականին, երրորդյա ապրիլյան, նույն կերպ մեկնեցինք եւ այնտեղ երկու փորձառություն ինձ մոտ եղավ, նկարահանումների փորձառություն եղավ եւ մեկը այսպես ոնց որ դեսանտ ես իջնում եւ սկսում ես քո դիտանկյունից տեսնել, որոնել, փնտրել, դա նման է օրագրի մեկ օր տենց եմ թափառել ապրիլյանի ժամանակ եւ մեկ օր էլ իմ խղճին դեմ գնալով փորձեցի բոլոր լրագրողները որ տանում են ինչ-որ միտեղ տենց գնալ եւ տենց մոտ 4-5 ժամ երթևեկելուց հետո արտաճանապարհային ճանապարհներով եկանք հասանք միտեղ որտեղ մի փոս էր եւ բոլորը դա էին նկարում այդ փոսը այս արդեն 44 օրյա պատերազմի ժամանակ, երբ որ ես իմացա, չգիտեմ, մոտ կասկած չկար, ներքին պահանջ կար, որ պետք է ներկա լինեմ, եւ երբ որ հասատեղ նույն կերպ, արդեն լրիվ անկախ, առանց պլանավորելու, առանց կանխատեսելու, միգուցե ինտուիտիվ, միգուցե իմանալով որտեղ ինչ է կատարվում, իմ ճանապարհով էի գնում, իմ մեքենայով եւ դեռ ապրիլյանի ժամանակ անօթաչու թռչող սարքերի փորձառությունը կար, որովհետեւ այն հույսով, որ ռումբը միտեղ չի խփում, ես կանգնել եմ միտեղ, հետո գնացել եմ եւ 100 մետր գնացից հետո ռումբը այնտեղ պայթել է, այս պատերազմի ժամանակ արդեն գիտեի, որ այդ կանոնը չի աշխատում եւ իմ հույսը իմ փոքր մեքենաներ որ աննկատ կլինի բայց այստեղ առաջին կարևորը ինձ համար էր որ սովորական մարդիկ առաջին հերթին ժողովուրդը գյուղացին որ այնտեղ ապրում էր երբ որ դու մտնում ես այդ տուն եւ այդ տուն ավիրված է եւ այդտեղ զոհ է եղել դու ոչինչով այդ բան չես կարողանում օգնել քեզ թվում է որ լուսանկարելով օգնում ես, հետո քեզ թվում է դա միգուցե ոչ մի բան է, անդադ այդ ներքին հաղթահարումը եւ հասկանալը ով ես դու եւ ինչ ես անում ստեղ, այդ խնդիրը կա։ Միգուցե ոչ այդքան տրամաբանական, միգուցե մի քիչ ավելի ինտուիտիվ, բայց այդ հարցադրումը անդադ քո հետ կա եւ ես որ գնացի համենայն դեպս իմ այդ զինվորական գրքույկը ստարել էի, որտեվ չգիտեի ինչ ոնց կդասավորվի եւ բացի դրանից եւ բանակում ծառայել եմ որոշակի փորձառություն ունեի ու իմ փորձառությունը տենց չիմանալով մութ տեղը անդադ առաջ շարժվելու տարբերակներ ուղղակի իմ խնդիրն էր որ ես անընդհատ չեմ եղել այնտեղ եկել վերադարձել եւ հաստատ Երևանից ավելի ծանր ավելի դժվար էր հետևել ինչա կատարում քան տեղում ես որտեվ տեղում ապրումներդ հետո ես մարսում եւ հետ պատերազմական շրջանում դա զգացվեց թե ցավը կամ հարցադրումից որոշակի պատասխաններ արդեն հետո են գալի նույնը եւ զինվորականների եւ գյուղացիների հետ որտեվ այդ ժամանակ որոշակի գործոններ են աշխատում եւ ինքնապաշտպանական եւ չգիտեմ, այդ պահին դու ուղակի անում ես քո գործը, իսկ հետո արդեն սկսում ես մտածել եւ հետո արդեն պատմությունը սկսում է ուրիշ ձև հյուսվել։
Բանի չեցեցիր, որ ես էլ նման փորձառություն ունեցա, երբ որ նույնիսկ նախընտրում էի I had a similar experience where I would prefer to be in Artsakh even though I didn't know what I was doing because it was easier being there than being here. It almost took away a little bit of your guilt as an Armenian, for example, in this case, saying at least I'm there and whatever is happening there will happen to me also. So it's kind of elevated a little bit of that feeling that of being away and imagining what's happening. Well, Vardan, what was your experience? Because you've gone through a similar during the first.
Lots of similarity because when I was in First War, for me it's a question why I'm here, you know? Because it's easy to say I'm a journalist to tell the world the story, what's going on, la la la, ni, ni, ni. But when the bullets flying around, when shrapnel's flying around, it takes the all bullshits out, and actually you must answer why you in frontline and what you're doing and what's your mission, real mission, not what you want to do it. And during the 4 years war, I'm always thinking, maybe it's better I go to the Red Cross and exchange to help the people. Maybe I will do something more meaningful. So I formulate for me that I am in the war for doing the meaningful films which will change the world. It sounds idealistical, you know, but if I risk my life, if I go to frontline, I want to be involved in something which is meaningful, you know. And it's a big difference between First War, Second War, like a 4 days war and 44 days, because in the First War, I'm an idealistic young boy who's 20 years old, and in 4 years, I never carrying the weapons. I was exchanged a prisoner, I make the filming, I became prisoner 2 times by myself, first time exchange, the first time escape, second time exchange. But I was idealistic. When I grew up, you know, and starting seeing the real politics and having own children, etc., I start become not a cynical, I'm afraid this word, but I start become much more realistical. And in this war, I was not. It was very heavy decision to decide what to do, you know. I'm going again without a weapon in the ethnic conflict where you have no chance to survive as a journalist because it's not a civil war, it's an ethnic conflict when you will be killed on ethnic reasons. So on Second War, I keep with me weapons as secondary thing. And at the end of the war, I was thinking to quit, you know, filmmaking and join the army. Even, I hate that to do that, you know, but they push, you know, you're pushed by situation. And I agree with Angela that very often when it's a war going on, it's too much going same time, you know, too much pressure on filmmaker, journalists, etc. And sometimes you say, okay, as Angela said, I will film it for archive. Let's film it, and I will try to understand and digest it. So lots of dilemma coming on the wartime on these issues. But great, what I can give advice, just think about this dilemma before the war, not after. You know, look at the experience of, you know, world classical writer who come in the World War I, World War II, and come through that because their books, their films, their story, it's become accumulated in you and help you save as a human in your personal war. And another thing is, it's important thing is, you know, war make from people animal. It's easy to become wild, you know, just take weapons and say, oh, they're rude, I'm rude. You know, it's always everyday thinking how to keep the dignity For me, it's in every war, it was important to stay human and keep the dignity and don't let to become
an experience that what you said reminded me of. We were in Artsakh at the hotel, a lot of journalists were there, and maybe it was the second week, a boy who'd been in the front lines and fighting and had actually just buried 2 friends in one day. He came and he saw that we'd let all the flowers in front of the hotel dry. No one had watered them. He got so angry. It's like, why did you lose your humanity? I understand it's war. Why? It wouldn't have taken you anything. Just why wouldn't you water these flowers? And he started watering the flower. This humanity thing, remember? This humanity thing. Augustinas, I was going to ask you this very selfish almost question. Because here we have people, we're thinking, okay, we'll just start fighting when it comes to that, because we're a side to the conflict. Have you ever had that experience where you think either I'll just start fighting, or you said enough is enough, now I leave?
To be honest with you, before going to Artsakh, I've been telling myself my whole life that I would never pick up a gun. I would never go to the war, fight myself. I hate it, I hate guns, I don't want to shoot at anyone ever. And that was a very strong feeling that I always had. Artsakh changed it.
How?
I remember going back after it, and I told my colleague, I said, you know what? I think now I would pick up a gun if I would need to defend country. Not with camera, not with, doing my job. No, I would probably go fight. When I saw people, I don't know, it was just this, none other conflicts had provoked this feeling, but somehow I could relate to the situation. And
Can you
also seeing Armenian
approach
colleagues.
as to why, put your finger on as to why?
I think it was the, growing in Lithuania, it's growing with the narrative of being small country on the threat all the time. You grow up by telling the stories of your grandparents being sent to Siberia and your parents, stopping tanks with their hands and so on. And you go from the school, from the beginning, and it kind of gets into you all the time. I still sometimes, I remember going in Lithuania, we have this parliament which was defended in 1990s in this so-called singing revolution where people peacefully defended from Red Army. I still have this feeling that, tank would appear around the corner or something. That's how deep this story is in my head. And I think that's what reflected in me. It was this smaller country being attacked brutally, and defending on in their own means. And there is no other way to defend yourself, only to pick up the gun. No one will come. There won't be miracle that will happen. You have to do it yourself. And yeah, I think that was the feeling that kind of reflected in me, this, I don't know, just being attacked by some bigger threat, and that it's in your hands to do it. So yeah, it really changed it.
Laurence, how do you deal with us? Because I think what this panel is bringing out is that, journalists, because it came out in the first panel also, we're not, Huwaida was saying, we're not robots. And we have emotions and we have fears, and we'll talk about fear as well. And we have these moments where we're supposed to be telling the story, but we're the ones that are most at loss. And then you somehow deal with it. What's the visual language? What comes in here?
Well, the first feeling I have is that I'm impressed, first of all, by the situation you are all in, be it the photographers, the video maker, or the writers. And as a photo editor, then I'm impressed also because of the daily basis thing. I think it's also very challenging, very demanding. What my role in there is to be a support. Basically, it's trying to give some info that they might not have on the field.
Well, Maria was calling me from Yerevan and telling me where exactly in Stepanakert was hit while I was in Stepanakert.
Exactly. So see, trying to get some info that you cannot on the ground have when it happens. It's trying to be just like just a voice to talk to, and it's also having a step back to make you like understand the story in a different way, or step back yourself so that emotionally you can maybe like lower than the pressure. And it's also trying to understand, to talk with the photographer in this case as much as possible to understand the story from the perspective of the people who are there, so that I can translate it then while I'm editing in the most fair way. I mean, the closest to their experience and what I understand from the reality there, from their perspective.
Well, it's difficult even if you're a foreign journalist and you're working with a fixer, and we'll talk about that also if we have time, but photos can be edited into sequences and photos can be chosen, but unlike text, photos cannot be edited beyond a certain point, which is you took it. It is what it is at this point, and you cannot improve on it. And I'm going to come back to what Angela was saying. In a way, well, coming back to this exhibition, right, the installation behind us, it's the cost of life. And what the post-war mindset for me was that, did I get information important enough that would be worth my life or my health? If I'm shooting what everyone else is shooting, did I break something, news? Did I make a difference? Was it worth the cost of my health or my life? And it's, again, that's lost opportunity. I didn't do enough. I didn't do enough for my story, for my reporting to be worthy of the risk of losing my life. So we've always not doing enough. I don't know who feels like this, or you have anything to add? Because there's no editing. There's no going back and doing more.
And I also, not only that's always this missed opportunity guilt or opposite, but for me, for example, it was this feeling sometimes that, okay, you have 4 minutes of the time for the reportage, and then you have a person giving you his life story, you know, he's opening up and giving you his trust and everything. And then, it's up to you to use it, So for me, it was always, okay, if you reach this moment when someone is finally ready to give this story, that what you mentioned, maybe, this one worth risking, well, better make it work, And then if you know that it's not gonna work, or you don't have the tools, or don't take it. That's my kind of the thing, because sometimes I think, and especially when I started working, you run from one story to another, and then really people giving you this trust, and they're putting themselves in danger sometimes giving these stories.
Yes.
And then at the end of the day, either your card is full or something happens, because of inexperience, or sometimes just the story is not for your audience as a foreign correspondent. It's a great story, but
And
okay, the editor says, well, I'm not interested.
Not to use it, for example.
Exactly. So that's the thing, I think the story worth risking is the one that you can put up there to audience to watch. I think so.
How do you know which one is the one? Because in the introduction I was saying, Vaghinak, you have thousands of photos, but one photo that you took that won World Press told more than most of us to put together. So it's very interesting, is like sometimes and sometimes you just, as you said, you work in the dark and you follow your instinct, and then your instinct and just the fact that you're wandering around and not concentrating on getting that one building that was hit, you came across that situation, which told more of the story than to more people than I have or we have yet. Some of us have. I don't have a question, I was just saying. And it's just not us. We're talking here as storytellers and as journalists, but I also kind of want to talk about fixers, because Angela, you became a fixer at one point during the war, so that you would also kind of have access, or you shifted in between. And I think one of the things during this war, what we learned was that the media in Armenia doesn't understand the importance of fixers. And they were talking about, oh, did we tell the story or we didn't? But as you were saying also, they're also equally risking their lives. And in Martuni, the boy who was acting like a young boy, he died because he was accompanying a journalist. So this...
As I told, first day I was doing some videos for the some medias who are calling me and asking to make a videos, and then I felt I don't want this compromise because all the time they are asking something which is under the bombs, of course, and then it's something very short, and I felt that it's not worth it. But my friends were the fixers, and with whom I was always talking, you know, have your limits, have your limits, have your limits. What I did, I never worked, I mean, it wasn't ever paid, but I was suggesting to translate for some journalists, foreign journalists, because they got more access than us. And sometimes it was the only way to get somewhere, and I was like, I can translate for you. And they know also that it's not only about translation, but it's also they will trust you more, etc. Not the ones who are giving the access, but the real people. As a local, they will trust you more. That's how I was going with them. And first, no, I wasn't so clever to recognize that you don't have to risk so much for their reportages, but they could ask you to go more further, because also sometimes they are coming and they don't know something. And I was joking always, I was saying, when they are saying, oh, we want to go to the borderline, we want to go to the borderline, I was joking, telling, don't worry, it's coming here. And so, yeah, but sometimes I was just going with them, but I saw my friends who were really risking their lives. And as you already told, there was a guy who died in the same spot where I have been hit, and it wasn't told a lot about him, but we knew all that 2 French journalists has been attacked and they were wounded, and other Armenians, our friends, photographers, Artsakh, Cornet, they helped them to get to the hospital, but we know nothing about that, and we know nothing that this young person died there. And we were totally unprepared, we all know it. Not only, I mean, fixers, also us. We didn't have helmets, we have nothing until, I don't know, the 10th day, something came from somewhere and we are taking, I don't know even where. I had an experience when we were in Hadrut and it was shelling, and one journalist guy, he suggested his helmet to me and I took it. And now from this far I'm thinking, what if something would happen with him? And would I mean, this guilt that he just gave thing to me, but we didn't have it.
We had a different situation, actually. We were initially 2 people, myself and Ergiri Korean, and we had 1 vest, and none of us would wear it. We're thinking, well, hell.
Then you are free from the guilt.
Yes, we're free from the guilt.
But to add something on this fixer thing, I think it was really a profession that was not recognized and not really understood, and that has come, at least by the professional internationally, it has become like more and more understood and rewarded. I mean, there has been some prizes that has been given to a team of journalists plus fixer, and I think that's very important, because indeed the fixer is not a translator. In your case, you said it was an opportunity to also get access, but the fixer is someone who, as a foreigner, gives you an understanding of the place, the contextualization, who gives you the access, who finds the access. It's, I mean, such a prescient element to the reporting.
The fixer can also influence content, because depends on who the fixer is taking you to talk to. how they find out. It generally influences the content that you're putting out. So yes, your workshop will be about that, I think, tomorrow.
Yeah, we will try to talk, because really for me also working with the fixer here in Armenia was very interesting experience, because one of them was a volunteer who came and he did this fixing job, really risking everything. And this guy was reckless, really. But he was well prepared. He knew the security things and everything else. And you know, he worked with us, and then we said, "What are you gonna do?" He said, "Well, there's more of you guys coming, so don't worry, I'll find out." And for me, it was his volunteering, and he did brilliant job, really. And then another time I worked with the guy who was also, he'd never had any experience before. He said, I was a tour guide, and I would just bring people to Artsakh to show them the beautiful nature. But I knew roads very well. And actually, at least what he told me, he did quite a career, let's say. He was really a wanted person. You know, people wanted, foreign journalists wanted him, because he really managed to find interesting angles, interesting stories. But what I really liked about him, and I think it's a good lesson for everyone who wants to work as a fixer, right before going, he was very, very clear about the ways he operates and about ethical things. He put it as a first thing, not the money, not the safety, but the ethical things. And I think that was what really brought me, I want to work with you. Because he was very clear, look, we're gonna go there, we're gonna talk with people, but you know, we're not gonna do your journalistic things where you come, do 5-minute shot and get out of there. No, we're gonna sit there for a coffee, all right? And smoke a cigarette if we have to. I said, okay, let's do it, you know, I'm up to your task. And in this way, in his way of working, he really did very well. And well, he was also a very brave guy, I think. And again, he had no equipment whatsoever, nothing really. And that's also some problem, because at the time I was a freelancer, so I didn't have anything to bring him as well. And yeah, it gives you a pressure as well. And in some situation, you don't want to risk this person's safety, so you say, okay, let's not do it. So yeah.
But I think maybe the experiences in Armenia informed a lot of how people and organizations reacted with the war in Ukraine, for instance, because there has been a lot of organizations trying to collect all the material, the safety material for freelancers, which was not the case before. And there was such a flow of journalists going to the country, and a lot of them freelancers without the means to have this material that is very costly, or to bring it to all the people like drivers and translators and fixers working with them. And so that might have had an influence on the war in Ukraine and the way it was
Well, I
organized.
think
Here
from what
it came very late. It came somehow a bit, some of the helmets or vests, but very late. I mean, it was already 10th day or 11th day. But many of the fixers without helmets, without vests.
Because I remember also this moment in Stepanakert, you know, it was the beginning of the day and journalists were gathering to kind of find out what's going on and so on. And then there was this two young Armenian journalists that came up there, you know, and they came without anything, you know, they just jogged in, where are we going, you know? And, you know, everyone just kind of gathered, like, take the helmet on, you know, someone was putting the vest on them, you know, kind of wrapping them up. Come on, guys, what the hell, you know? And, you know, they looked at us like, you know, oh, really? That's the necessary thing? You know, you have to do it? Like, yes, you have to. Yeah, but, I mean, I could relate to them a little bit, because also when I came, also, sometimes I feel bad, especially if you're doing a story about a person and I don't want to be standing there all with helmet and vest next to him.
And
you know?
well, yeah, he's at home, which can be bombed. You're kind of protected. He's completely not. Everyone
you feel
else
a bit, you know,
show-offish.
Exactly. But so for me was this feeling. I was looking in this Armenian journalist. I was thinking, is it their feeling, because it's their country, right? It's their people.
That
and
was
then, these people have nothing around them, and you show up all, the vest and stuff. Maybe that was
It was
also
very
issue.
difficult for us psychologically, I'm talking for myself, of course, to put those things on when people around you don't, the civilians around you don't. Thank you, everyone. I think there's much more to talk about, but this is it for now, I think.